Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
This is Wildly Queerious, episode 7.
Are you going to say the episode every time?
Should I not?
I don't know. Just like, what if you forget?
Well, I guess other people, I don't know. Some people do, some people don't.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like we're bragging. Like, hey, number 7.
Yeah. Ooh, we're really moving right along here.
Yeah. No.
Speaking of podcasts and people who listen to them, we want to thank everyone that's tuned in and some special guests.
Wait, I feel like we have a new number 1 fan.
Who is that new number 1 fan?
It's my dad.
It's your dad.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about him listening to this?
Well, I thought that we had forbidden him. And then you are like giving him access to the podcast. And it's just weird. Like, it's weird because it's one thing when it's strangers. Obviously, strangers are great. We love the people we don't know. They're the best.
We also love the people we know.
Well, but listening to the podcast is different, you know, because we're still very much so trying to figure out what we're doing. And I think, like, I don't know, there's a certain level of, you know, friends who kind of know you, who you're comfortable with. And then parents, it's just a weird, I don't know, it's weird because, like, your parents aren't nearly as involved in your adult life as, like, your friends are. So it feels like this person who's more removed who all of a sudden is like, hello, I'm over here listening to you.
You know, when you say that, that brings up a story, like, in my mind growing up. Like, growing up, I played in, like, punk rock bands and I would go to shows and stuff like that. And I remember other people in our band, their parents would come to our shows.
Wait, how old were you?
17, 18, 19, 20.
But that's still like an appropriate enough age to go support your kid doing their things.
I suppose. But I always thought it was a little weird because my parents would definitely never come to one of our shows. That's not a thing. I wouldn't want them there. So it kind of...
So you can understand why I'm like, oh, this is weird. This is weird. And not only, here's the thing. Not only is it weird, but apparently we're making an impact on him.
Oh.
Because he then listened to the most recent episode and was talking to his girlfriend about it and was trying to identify all of the phrases that he regularly says. All of his, like, you know, here's the thing, phrases.
Okay.
And so he had shared a couple. I didn't ask, but he shared. And I don't remember what they are. But so now he's like not even just listening to the podcast, but he's like being introspective about it.
Wow.
And that's just so unnecessary. Dad, stop it. Because he's probably going to listen to this one too.
Probably.
So I think he's now like number 1 fan. So we'll make him a t-shirt. He probably wants a t-shirt.
Oh, we should make t-shirts. We should have merch.
You got to be further than episode 7.
Or you start strong.
No, further than episode 7.
You're telling me that Bad Dates didn't have merchandise on day 1?
What's Bad Dates?
That's Jamila's new podcast.
She's famous.
Well, you're telling me she didn't have merch on day 1?
Neither one of us are famous. How many listeners do we have? 12? Yeah, that's not enough for merch. That's not enough. We're not.
I mean, that could be 12 people. And it's more than, we have 12 followers. Actually, we're up to 16 followers. Thank you for more people.
It's probably my dad and all his friends now. He's got a whole friend group. And I bet you they like have a group chat and they listen to the podcast at the same time. And then they chat about it. Except he's like too old to do that stuff. So they probably just go to lunch and talk about it because that's what older people than me do.
They chat and they go to lunch.
Yeah, they don't have a group text about it.
They don't have a Discord about it?
No.
I don't. Discord was younger than me. I jumped off the bandwagon at text messages.
Yes. But no merch, I think, for now.
Okay.
Is the, would you even wear, if we had merch, would you wear it?
Well, it's such a cool name,
because
Wildly Queerious.
I don't see you wearing that.
Oh, it'd be
I'm sorry. I don't.
It would be like our pink, like, trademark color, and it would be like...
I don't see you wearing that. The extent that you would go with merch is you would take a sticker and you would put it on one of your cases or a water bottle. And that's the extent of your use of our merch.
Yeah, but who really wants to wear their own merch? It's kind of like, I don't know. It seems a little posery.
Or you just make stuff you like. Like, if you are going to make merch and you don't like it enough to use it, then why make it?
Fair enough. So some big news this week that I am both excited and terrified about. Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is gone from Fox News. And that's great. I still can't believe the couple times I watched his show, I watched him saying Russia would never invade Ukraine the next day that they did. And I watched him shoot propaganda for xenophobic stuff, transphobic, obviously, queerphobic. That was kind of he was a firebrand for those purposes. And they finally let him go. I don't know the reasons. Apparently he was a horrible person to work with.
Was it not connected to the Fox News lawsuit?
The defamation lawsuit? It certainly could have been.
I don't know anything about any of this stuff.
It certainly could have been that, but there was also reports that his behavior was bad enough, which is saying a lot inside a misogynistic, news organization, that his behavior was misogynistic enough that it was causing problems. And here's why I'm potentially cautious about being excited about it.
Is he going to make his own network?
Yeah, I think he's probably going to go all Joe Rogan.
That seems like the power.
That's the power move, right? But other people who've left Fox News, Megyn Kelly, Glenn Beck, whoever, like they've gotten less famous over time. So there was something still about being on that channel that made you, gave you a bigger microphone.
Noteworthy.
So my fear is, who are they going to replace them with? Are they going to put in someone who's equally xenophobic, transphobic, pro-Russia, really, it's just all his causes? Or are they going to go, hey, maybe we went a little too far and come back to normalcy a little bit? So anyways, some interesting news there. And then also, we're going to talk more about mental health on this episode. And we're going to talk about kind of a continuation of the last episode, talking about mental health. But before we do, I just have a question or a thing I wonder.
I wonder where you're going with this.
Oh, I'm going to talk about Disney.
Oh, because I would like to talk about Disney too. I always want to talk about Disney.
So I grew up Republican. I grew up
watching Tucker Carlson.
No, God, no. God, no. I stopped being Republican when I started listening to Rush Limbaugh, and I was like, oh my God, that's what Republicans believe? Peace, I'm out. I grew up, that was the political party of my parents. And most people grow up with the same beliefs as their parents because that's within their home, and that's kind of reinforced on a day-to-day basis. And
though maybe not so much now. There's a shift.
Slight shift.
Yeah.
But this is what I wonder, because the Republican Party I grew up in was very much pro-business and leaving business alone to do whatever it wanted for the most part. Just leaving business alone and do whatever they want. They didn't want any government regulation. They didn't want government controls. They didn't want, if you're in business, you do you, go for it.
And enter Disney.
Who
literally is their own, county in Florida.
Yeah.
This is where you're going, right?
This is where I'm going.
Okay.
And what I'm genuinely curious about is the Desantis, who we're pretty sure is running for president. He wants to, he's put out a government vendetta against Disney. He's decided Disney is the enemy.
Yes.
Business is the enemy. And
this one specific business.
Right.
Because he's not going after all businesses.
And why this one business? Because that business spoke up and said, hey, your don't say gay law is stupid. And as a business, they have every right to say that. Businesses, for better or worse, Supreme Court said corporations are people. We'll debate that on another episode, but
no, we won't. I'm not going to debate that.
That'll be a different episode.
That'll be a different podcast.
A different podcast.
Stay tuned, but don't really.
Okay.
If you're my dad, you can just stop listening now.
So they spoke out against this bill, which they have every right to do. That is their free speech right. They choose to run their business in the way that they see best for them and for their employees and for their customers.
And for the people who complained on the internet about Disney being quiet.
Yeah.
Because I think ultimately that was why they had...
Well, you had Chapek, who was not.
Yes. Disney is taking some steps. Oh, we could talk about the good news about... Well, we're getting into what I think is going to be good news about Disney, but then we can talk about the better news about Disney.
Okay, so we'll get there and get there. So,
I got a lot to say about Disney.
So my question is, when did it become the Republican Party thing to say what businesses can or cannot say? And even extending that out to Bud Light. Bud Light decided to put out a promotion, champion a queer person. And I actually don't know a lot about Dylan Mulvaney.
I don't particularly love her. I think that there are better people that they could have picked. Representation is representation, but I feel like she's not my favorite.
Fair enough. But either way, Anheuser-Busch decided to partner up. Here's a trans person. Let's, do something to reach out to that community. Again, that's just them exercising their voice to do something. In the past, Anheuser-Busch they've made a conscious effort to try to make sure they'll show up at Pride festivals and not even for sales reasons as much. The people that are going to drink Budweiser are going to drink Budweiser. They already know they're going to drink it.
They know their audience.
They know their audience. And still, though, now we have all these people on the right saying you're, as a business, aren't allowed to do this.
Well, okay, no. There has always been for, I think, maybe a good portion of my, adult life that I can remember, a business comes out and supports something Pride related, and the response from some people is, oh, I'm never going there again. Yeah. Oh, we need to stop going there. So it's the public, I think, has been very vocal about, oh, I'm not going to support them. Whatever, big whoop. You know what I mean? Like, these companies make so much money that's
free, and it doesn't
matter.
That's free market choice. Some people call it cancellation. I call it you choose where to spend your time and money.
Yeah, but I think we're just kind of in the Wild West of it's just a shit show out there. There's no rules. You could just be walking around on a horse and then get into a gunfight all of a sudden because someone looked at you wrong, and it's just what are we doing? Yeah. So I don't know, but Disney's fighting back.
Yeah,
because they're gonna sue Desantis, and I am very worried about that, because if they lose, it sets a really not great precedent.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
You know a little bit about Bob Iger.
Yes, I haven't read his book like you have, though.
Great book, by the way. Are you kidding me? This was the guy that brought table tennis to North Korea. What? That's crazy. Oh, apparently I'm getting text messages. Oh, Brooklyn has COVID. Hey, just found out my daughter has COVID. So that's fun.
Yeah, that's great. She missed the train when we all
everyone else got it.
Our household got it, and then her household got it, and somehow she never got it. And it's funny because when I heard she was sick a couple days ago, I was like, is that still a thing? Could she actually have that? And so I just think that it's a little funny that she finally has it.
Bob Iger.
Yeah, back to what we were talking about.
This guy plays 3D chess while Desantis is playing checkers. He is a shrewd dude.
I feel like Desantis is playing oh God, what is that game? Tetherball, where you have a metal pole on the playground, and there's a rope and there's a ball, and you hit the ball. We never knew how to play that, and so it was just ball hitting and hope the ball doesn't hit you. So if you didn't get hit by the ball, you were winning.
Yeah, so
that game has no rules.
Yeah, so that's actually probably a more adept.
Tetherball.
So DeSantis is playing tetherball and Iger's playing 3D chess. And you're right, they sued today. They said, enough, dude. All we're trying to do is do our business the best way we know how. Mm-hmm. And you've told us we can't. And then you tried the government seizure of our business, which, by the way, is that not communism? Is that not like seizing assets of companies by the government? Which goes to show the Republican Party is not the Republican Party anymore. But digress. So yeah, they finally said today we're going to sue. Here's what I know. They would not sue if they did not know they would win.
Which I like your optimism. I don't know. The climate right now is such that it's just, I feel like I have all the metaphors today. We're those plate jugglers who've got plates on sticks and they're spinning them.
Yeah.
And this is what our world is right now. And it's chaos. And at any minute, like, things could break down and things could be broken. And who knows, like, what's repairable, what's not. So I don't know. I am happy that, they're pushing back, because I think that it's clear retaliation, what he's doing.
Yeah.
But it's just the climate is nervous making.
Well, and I think that's the part that the reason why I'm not completely convinced they'll definitely win is if it goes to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court is such now that it is going to side with these kind of like right-wing extremists. And maybe the Supreme Court wants, government seizure of businesses. I don't actually know. I know they don't want abortion. I know.
We'll kill your business, just not your baby.
Yeah.
That would be a horrible, but also great tagline for something.
We'll kill your business, not your baby.
Yeah. It's horrible, but so catchy.
You might have just come up with the Republican Party's new slogan.
I mean, if anyone starts using that in the next campaign, I want royalties. 16 people listening.
That might be our title. No. On average, we get like 100 people that listen per episode.
Okay.
Which for the 7th episode in is...
It's probably my dad listening to it on repeat, okay?
Oh, God.
It's probably him. Can I take the conversation in a slightly different direction?
Please do.
Because we're still on the topic of Disney, right? Okay. And we can only speculate about what's going to happen with
we can also
their
talk
lawsuit.
About Bright Night Disney.
That's where I was going.
We'll go there.
Disneyland has now officially, for the first time ever, Disneyland Anaheim sponsoring their own Pride Night. And I'm so upset because we're out of town. We're out of town going to a different country's Disney Pride Night because they had it first. And if Disney California would have told us, we would not have booked the trip this year to go.
I don't know. I still think France is a little special for us.
Yeah, but I'm sad that it's the first one, and I really like to be able to support the things that support me. And so yes, Disney, take my money. I would love to come to both nights of your Pride Night and just be gay at Disney, and I know I had told you not that this is going to happen, because we've already established now that you are not a fun shirt kind of person. But I've told you about how my, I don't want to call it dream, because that's way too much, but just how I always had wanted a girlfriend who I could go to Disney with and hold hands and we could wear matching couple shirts.
We did that last time we went to Pride.
Not at Disneyland in California. Okay, because that was the park that I knew. That's where the vision or the whatever it is. So now I could have that opportunity. So thanks, Disney. Really appreciate it. We're coming back next year. So that's that.
If they decide they're going to have it,
they're going to do it.
It's
okay,
probably
they're going to
sold
do
out
it
already.
No, tickets actually did go on sale. It wasn't on my radar because I'm not buying tickets because we're going to a different night. It's fine. We're good. But this is something that's interesting. Notice how I did not say, here's the thing.
Yeah.
That was intentional.
Notice how you still had to slide it in by saying you're not saying it.
I know. Here's the thing. So we are going to Paris for their Pride Night. Mm-hmm. We're going to Orlando for my birthday. And I just bought a People Mover tank top because I freaking love the People Mover. It's the best, most underrated, best ride ever.
And it does need to come back to Disneyland.
And my mom says that I like it because I'm old. So, I don't know.
It was my favorite ride as a kid.
It's a great ride. So I bought my People Mover tank top. And of course I'm looking at other tank tops, and it hits me that I need something gay to wear to Pride Night.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know what that gay thing is, but I'm like thinking about, different gay things I can wear. And just, thinking about the two Disney trips that we have coming up. And I had this thought of, oh, I don't know that I would feel comfortable wearing a gay shirt to Disney Orlando.
Yeah.
Like, for the first time ever, have I had doubt about safety at Disneyland.
Yeah.
And being comfortable at Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how I feel about that.
I was having the exact same thought when we were talking about it. And
which is so funny, though, because when we went to Paris, the city Paris,
yeah,
we were very not comfortable with being a couple. We were like, this doesn't feel safe. Let's just be roommates, right?
Yeah. In the city of Paris.
Yes. But when we went to Disney Paris, we were back in that Disney bubble again. So it's so interesting to have that shift where we know we can go to Paris and be, fine and comfortable and wear gay things, but then to like have second thoughts about doing so in Orlando.
Yeah.
Were you going to say, here's the thing?
No.
I bet you were. I'm going to pretend that you were.
Okay. If you need it to be said that badly,
I don't.
Here's the thing.
No, it's not the same.
Yeah, I know.
You were going to say it when you were going to say it.
So here's what I was thinking about.
That's pretty much the same thing. It's the same thing. Just more words.
For context, I think it's important to understand the bubbles of Disney. So Disneyland Paris, Euro Disney, that entire area is roughly 20 miles from the city.
Very different from your Disneyland California.
Very different from your Disneyland California. And it was an entire development built solely for Disneyland. And so
they still own a ton of unused land.
They own a ton of unused land there. They probably have only built out maybe like 1/5 or a fifth or a sixth of the land they actually own there.
And for context, they're 30 years old. Disneyland is 65 plus.
Yeah.
And Disney World is 50.
Yeah. So they're definitely one of the newer parks. And so they built this kind of enclave, for lack of better words. And it's a big enclave. Like we stayed last time we were there, we stayed at a hotel that was probably 3 or 4 miles away, but still on property that was Disney owned or Disney controlled.
Which is similar to how it is in Orlando.
Yeah, it is.
But it's more remote even than Orlando. So
I say that, though, because from a security perspective, if somebody wanted to go to Disneyland Paris, specifically to Pride Night, there's a gap of 10 miles where there can be different security things in place that would prevent someone dangerous from getting in where they need to be. Disney World, the same thing. There's all sorts of places where you could have security screening, but then we talk about Florida being a different type of visitor. A different type of visitor goes to Disney World.
Which almost should be reassuring a little bit. Disneyland is locals.
Yeah.
There is such a high population of locals there.
And especially in Anaheim's not a super liberal city. Neither's Fullerton, neither's La Habra, Brea, Santa Ana. The cities around Anaheim are not super liberal cities. And in fact, Huntington Beach, which is where anytime you hear about a white pride rally in California, it's in Huntington Beach or other places. But in Orange County, it's Huntington Beach. There's a lot of people there who actively have hate in their hearts towards the queer community. And they are a stone's throw away from being able to do a lot of damage. And so thinking about that now, it's become more, the past couple of years, I feel it's become more aware for us. We're more aware when we go out that there's a potential for danger.
I don't think so.
No?
I feel like you're just being dramatic to be dramatic.
Oh, I don't think so. I think...
You worry about that in California?
Yeah.
Because I surely don't. I worry about that in other states.
I worry about it. Well, I worry about it everywhere. I worry about it here in Colorado. I worry about it. People have become emboldened in their opposition to stuff that should be a non-issue. Who someone sleeps with or how they dress or what name they use. Like, these are inconsequential things. And if that matters to you, then it probably says more about you and your own discomfort with other people.
Well, back to where I was going.
Yeah.
Was that Disney Anaheim is a lot of locals.
Yeah.
And generally, California's accepting. So, and we can disagree on that, but I've never had an issue in Disneyland. And the fact that they're doing a Disney-sponsored Pride Night is...
I've never had an issue in Disneyland.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, I mean, obviously there's issues everywhere.
Right.
But as far as like that culture and all of that, you know, I don't have worries. I do have worries about the people in Florida. Not all the people.
Right.
But there are, you know, people in Florida. This is your governor, right? He's the governor.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It makes it feel more dangerous. But then I have to think Disney World has 7 different pass types for locals.
Yeah.
Okay. They really want their locals to go to Disneyland. They're incentivizing it so hard. And meanwhile, there's only one type of annual pass that you can get if you are not a local.
And how do you know this?
Because I got it for my birthday, which hasn't happened yet, but it's coming up and we're going. So, but they want the locals to come.
Yeah.
The locals are not as prevalent in Florida as they are in California. Just it's a different demographic of people who go there.
And it's a drive. I mean, for a local to go to Disney World, they're going to spend 20, 25 minutes in a car, and they're going to spend...
I mean, that's the same for California. Let's be honest.
Okay, but either way, once they get on the park property, they're going to take 10 or 15 minutes. Like it's a lot quicker to get inside Disneyland than it is Disney World.
Yes. But so I don't know. I don't know if a different demographic of people makes me feel any different about any potential risk. And like,
well, and it doesn't even have to be violence. Maybe more people are emboldened now because of the actions of Desantis of, you know, fuck Disney. Oh, Disney's bad. Well, cool. I'm going to go to Disney.
And they would be dumb enough to pay the money to go to Disney.
They would be dumb enough to pay. It's like the people
And that sounded mean. I didn't want to be mean, guys.
Well, either way, it's the people who went out and bought Bud Light to shoot Bud Light. And it's like, thanks for buying our product. Like either way, the people that are coming to Disney World, they may not be violent in the sense of they're going to bring guns and knives and stab people. There are some safety protocols in place there, but they're able to make their presence known in a way that makes it feel less safe.
Which again, we haven't yet experienced in the parks.
So far.
Yes. And yeah, so far. I don't see Orlando having a Pride Night, but I also know that Orlando doesn't do the after dark events like Disney does. So that may not even be a thing. Because again, Disney caters to locals. You're not going to necessarily like buy. I mean, the Halloween party and the Christmas party is different because those run for months at a time.
Yeah.
But, you know, your average person isn't necessarily going to plan a trip around an after hours event, whereas loads of locals in California are going to those after hours events.
And I think where this becomes relevant outside of Disney, it comes back to feeling safe anywhere you go now. So this week we had a meeting. We had some people from the local kind of LGBT group come over and talk with us. And they were sharing these thoughts about some of the youth groups and stuff like that are run here. And how there's a palpable fear of parents when they drop off their kids. Are they going to be safe? And that's such a different thing. And maybe it's because of my own privilege that this is hard for me to fathom. I would imagine if I was a person of color and I lived in an area where there was a lot of crime, I might have similar feelings. But I'm a little confounded because the area we live in is it's white, y'all. It's.
I'm not as surprised as you seem to be about this because
we're south of Denver, and what I loved about Denver is how diverse it is.
We're also not that far from Colorado Springs.
Yeah,
and I mean the neighborhood that you used to live in was very leaning in a very conservative direction.
Yeah.
And so when we moved here, I had very real very realistic, I guess, ideas of what the political climate in this particular area could be.
And I was thinking, if as we moved up closer to Denver, we would have a lot more diversity, and we don't. And it's unfortunate, but it also, I think, goes to the fact that this is it's an affluent town. It's very white. It's very well educated. And I feel gross even saying that, because that's not the place I want to live or be in. But usually what goes along with that is a sense of safety, is a sense of, it is very low crime here. And even despite that, the fear of attacks against the queer community are real. And they're real because, like you said, Colorado Springs, 10 or 15 miles south of here, 20 or 30 miles south of here, some Mormon kid went and shot up an LGBT club.
Well, but even then, I mean, there was the incident when we had first moved where we got a threatening note on the door.
Yeah.
From someone who was local to us.
Yeah.
So it's not, an hour away, Colorado Springs.
It's here.
Yeah. And at one point, in this chat with the people who had came over, we had talked about the possibility of like us hosting something, and the answer was a hard no for our address to be out in public, because this is just not the place.
What does that say? I mean, I can't believe we're still at that point. I can't believe we're there, because I didn't think we were there. I thought we were past that point as a species, at least as Americans. I mean, around the globe, there's different beliefs and concepts, but I thought we were past that point. And now we are diving deep back into it again. And it's
the Wild West. And plate juggling.
Yeah.
The Wild West with plate juggling. And tetherball.
I keep hearing our dog squeak.
Yeah, he's whining, but not whining.
Yeah. Last week we were talking about mental health. Mm-hmm. And I kind of ended the conversation a little bit prematurely. I'm always curious how long people listen to podcasts for. And then, if I'm being honest, I didn't listen to a lot of podcasts. I couldn't really understand. I had a hard time understanding what podcasts were.
As someone who wanted to do a podcast.
Well, everyone else is doing it.
Can we just acknowledge that for once I knew something that you didn't know, and I was more of an expert on something because I listen to podcasts, and you're trying to go blind, and I actually listen to them and know some things. So go ahead, continue.
I'd like to publicly acknowledge that you were right. And I was less informed.
No. I mean, although here's the thing, I never necessarily challenged you. I feel like because you are you, in the ways of like, oh, I have the best tech. I know what to do. I know you can figure out how to make a podcast from the technical standpoint. So I think I've just kind of said, okay, like, you can take the lead. This is, how to do this in all of the ways, except for the one where I actually maybe know a little more. But so I haven't necessarily challenged you enough for you to justifiably be wrong, but I was definitely right.
I mean, are we the people who have gone through like 15 different microphones to figure out which one was going to be the best? And
that's an exaggeration, but I'm sure you have 15 in here. Now she's counting. Yeah, you're counting. Don't count. There's no need to count.
But we finally found the right ones, because these ones are the best. And
you did. I've no difference to me. I could be.
So big shout out to the SE.
Oh gosh.
What is it? What's this microphone called?
It doesn't matter.
Well, it's made by SE, and it's like the podcasting microphone, and it's so much better than the SM7Bs or the RE20s.
You've detoured
or the for 40s.
So
okay,
much.
I know I did. So what I'm getting back to, and so did you with mental health. I started listening to podcasts a couple weeks ago. And I get it.
What do you get?
Let me tell you about one of my favorite memories growing up as a kid.
Okay. Were you listening to podcasts?
In a way.
Okay.
So
Was it on your iPod or your CD player or your tape cassette
No,
player?
no.
Or was it on a record?
No.
Radio?
AM radio.
Of course. You love AM radio. I'm not even surprised.
So as a kid,
what kid, and maybe this is just me, okay? But what kid likes AM radio? Because it made me nauseous when it would go on in the car. It literally made me nauseous. AM radio.
wow.
Yeah.
That's a ringing endorsement for great talk radio.
I don't know. So the fact that you're going to talk about a positive story about AM radio right now, maybe I'll get nauseous during. Just heads up.
Okay. Anyways, so growing up as a kid, my dad always drove Cadillacs. He had a brown one, he had a blue one, and I remember the Cadillacs, and I remember riding them, and we would be out at night late often, coming home from baseball games. We went to a lot of baseball games together. Coming home from events or movies or whatever. And I think this went all the way up until the time I was like maybe 18 or 19. And he was commuting to California. And I was living in California at the time. And I would pick him up every night or once or twice a week at night. He always come in late on the airport. And we would turn on the 8 a.m. radio. And in Los Angeles, on the KNX station back in the day, I'm not sure if they still do it or not, but they used to run old-timey radio shows like The Lone Ranger, Dragnet, like all these old kind of classics where they're recorded in probably like the 30s, 40s, 50s. And there were people in studios who were like making sound effects, and they had like one microphone, like an old RCA vintage microphone.
The fact that you're getting so excited about this right now, I can't.
But I remember how compelling they were. I remember listening to them and going, this person has my interest. And then I remember too, I had a school teacher who used to read us books after lunch, and way older than we should have been for a teacher to read you books. Like this was probably like 6th or 7th grade. We come back for lunch and she spent 30 minutes just reading a book. And I remember being completely enthralled with listening to someone tell me a story. And then that kind of died out as soon as everything became, I got my first Game Boy right about then. And then I was lost. I was like, what? Tetris? I don't need creativity anymore. And
you still sometimes play a lot of Tetris.
I'm really good at Tetris.
Again, because you play a lot of it.
You're the person who thought you could beat Tetris.
Yeah, I just thought I was bad at video games, okay? I didn't know that I was playing an unwinnable game. That's a whole separate conversation.
That is a separate conversation.
Episode 8 is going to be Tetris.
But either way, I haven't had that experience of listening to a story. And I don't like audiobooks, generally speaking. I like reading, and just so it goes at my own pace and I can actually kind of enjoy it and listen to it. So I haven't had that experience of listening without looking in probably 25 years.
I talk to you all the time and you don't look at me. Is it because I'm not telling you a story? Is that what I have been doing wrong the whole time?
Either way.
I'm going to work on that.
Yeah, you should just put everything you did in a day in a story, and then I'll be like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, great. Yeah. And then what'd you do? Mm-hmm. But that involves me asking questions. That's a problem. But I found a couple podcasts I really like. And maybe that's the trend. Maybe I should know like the smaller podcasts. I haven't got into the smaller podcasts yet. I started listening to Spotless because Jason Bateman and Will Arnett together and Sean Hayes, they're just, that's my kind of humor. It's
really hard to find a podcast. I feel like it's like trying to find a pair of jeans.
It is tricky.
Because there's, number one, there's so much out there.
Yeah.
But then like, I think if you know who you like and if they do a podcast, that's like your gateway.
That is the gateway.
But once you're in the gateway, like you've stepped through the door, it's really hard to sort through finding, whether it's new topics or whether it's new people. Like, It's just hard.
It is. And I think that's kind of where my that's where I'm at right now. Like I knew Jason Bateman's humor and I got it. And I was like, okay, that's the one I can listen to. And then I've always thought the people behind It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia are just geniuses beyond their years. Or I guess they have some years on them now, but so I started listening to that and I said, okay, that's kind of cool. And then I tried some of the other ones that like Apple recommended for me. And I was like, some of these suck. And like,
it's so much is preference.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's like, for me, I can go into this with very low expectations of us making a podcast. Cause I'm like, a bunch of people probably aren't going to like it. And some people will. And it's such like a toss up of if anyone's actually going to like it or not.
Well, and that's where I think we stop worrying so much about how we come across and just all you can do is be yourselves. And when you're yourselves.
Why do I hear a dog on the other side of the door?
Because he totally jumped the fence and wants in here.
Oh my God, he's sniffing under the door. He's like, I know you're in there. Gosh. I smell you.
Wait,
I know what you smell like.
That's Kuzco.
Is it? He had to work for that then. He can't do the straight jump over.
Okay, well you gotta see and you gotta let him in here.
He has to climb in. Is it just him?
I don't know.
Okay, guys, special guest. This is our first guest on the podcast.
Hey.
Episode 7. And it's not my dad. We'll probably have to get him one day.
So while you're doing that, just the entire concept of podcasts fulfilled. So it's our redhead who we know definitely can jump over the fence.
Sorry, Coos.
Come here, bud. Oh, I know. Oh, I know. Oh.
He says, Mom, I just missed you guys so much.
Yeah.
I forgot what you looked like. I needed to see you.
Okay. So anyways, one of the things that I learned from, oh, hello. There he goes. Oh, yeah. Oh, you can hear the licks. Oh, God. You can hear all the licks. That's probably really weird for us to be in a different room talking and him being like...
No, it's not. We do this all the time. He's just needy.
Okay. So where I was kind of going with that, with listening to podcasts is I got it. I got the need. I understood how helpful it could be. And so that got me kind of excited about doing this. And then also realizing that most podcasts are a lot longer than we've been podcasting for.
I could have told you that I felt like you were stopping them prematurely. But you just thought that no one would want to listen to you talk for more than 45 minutes, which is funny because you could really talk for a long time.
Which is...
when given the opportunity.
Okay, here's why, though. I just realized it.
Why?
So, as a psychologist, my session lengths are typically 45 to 50 minutes.
So that's when you get tired of other people. I get it. You max out, so you assume everybody else is like, no.
Yeah, I want us to go for 45, 50 minutes, and then I want to spend 5 minutes writing some notes, and then move on to the next. Mm-hmm. So, with that being said, last week we did kind of cut off the conversation a little bit earlier when it comes to mental health.
But it's a much bigger conversation than one episode can.
It is. I mean, realistically, it's an ongoing theme, if you will. Oh, if you will. That's something I used to say quite a bit back in the day. Anyways, so last week we were talking about how states are trying to limit access to affirming care, affirming mental health, and so on.
Florida.
Yeah, as one of them. And then something came out. It came out day of on our last podcast, and so I didn't really have time to get into it and kind of research it a little bit before we talked. But Missouri. And...
You mean Missouri?
I mean, if you want to sound like you've never been there.
I have never been there.
So I'll say Missouri and you can say Missouri.
Okay, good. That way we're inclusive for the people who have been in there and the people who haven't.
Right, exactly. Unlike them who have definitely decided to be uninclusive.
All of them or just a handful?
I don't know. So here's what they came up with. An emergency declaration. Emergency health declaration.
Is that different from like the declarations when COVID happened?
Oh, I don't know. That would be fun to tease apart sometime.
Okay, not today.
But they came up with an emergency health declaration that said, and this is where interesting because gender affirming care has generally been about kids in the past. Every state so far that's done is, focusing on kids.
But I don't know that Florida has. I feel like Florida has said, because I've seen on the internet people who are like, I can't get my hormones after July.
Yeah.
And they're adults.
Yeah. So what the way Florida's approach is to say that if it's Medicaid, they're going to stop providing care through Medicaid, which is state funded. And so that's kind of their angle. And if we're talking about the community, trans community, queer community, a large percent of people are on Medicaid. And this is one of those things I've seen a lot as a provider, where a lot of people in the queer community as a whole will make sure they don't make enough money to be off Medicaid. And the reason being is drugs like PrEP are extremely expensive if you were to pay out of pocket or if you were on a private health insurance. But Medicaid covers it. And so there's a lot of people in a lot of different states who they're either gig workers or cash under the table people, or they just genuinely are less employed, which is common. They stay on the state health insurance. And so Florida is saying state health insurance is no longer going to cover these things. But what Missouri did is they put out an emergency declaration that says you cannot receive gender affirming care as an adult if you have a diagnosis of depression.
It has to be cured first.
You have to be depression free for X number of years before you can receive this care, which has been shown to mitigate depression.
Yes. And this is where, like, and I feel like it goes back to kind of the point I was trying to make last week or last episode, where how much of mental health is genuinely mental health and how much of mental health is circumstantial, environmental, situational.
Okay.
Because if you are a regular person, just, nothing different about you, very like fit the mold, and you have depression, there's likely nothing with your identity that is, linked to that depression. So maybe you get on some antidepressants, like, cool, life's better. You do some therapy, like, okay. But if you are someone who is in a marginalized community or who is constantly facing, bad news in the media, just like bad politics happening, like it's kind of a shitstorm for queer people, at least. We know that people of color have been the forefront of the shitstorm in, their own ways. So the dog is just sniffing around. It's fine.
Okay.
But like when you have that you have to deal with, the constant turning on the news and hearing something about the community that you're a part of, hearing about how you're less of a human, how you have less rights, how you're going to have less access, that alone is depression inducing. That should not have to be fixed chemically, because that's not necessarily your own,
not
the way your body is naturally functioning, and then you have to take it like just an extra step further. You've got people who are in the queer community who identify differently. You're really about what the dog is doing. You let him in here, so you just need to deal with it.
He's sniffing around. That's all I'm
saying. Which is fine. That's what he's gonna do. You have a lot of new stuff in here lately.
Oh, that's true. I do have a lot of new stuff in here lately.
Yeah, so it all smells like outside. So, but what I was saying is, you've got the depression that happens within queer, trans people that is alleviated when they're able to transition, which again is external forces.
Yeah.
The, gender norms and gender rules and expectations and all of that. So I just feel like it's a gross misunderstanding and possibly a intentionally gross misuse of what mental health is and what depression is.
Well, I still and
because the only way that will cure that depression for some of these people without getting that care they need is suicide. Like that's it, So,
but that goes to fit the agenda that a lot of these people want the eradication of the trans community. They know their goal. They know the data that not getting care is detrimental to a person's health. Either way, I think this loops back into what we're talking about with DeSantis and Disney in Florida. Before we hit that, but it's related, is since when do governments know better than doctors? Ever? Right?
2022?
2020? Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot
2020.
that memo. I got that memo. That's right.
Wasn't it 2020?
Yeah, that's right. So doctors do know, or doctors aren't nearly as smart about medical things as
Donald Trump.
People elected by whatever. The other thing is, you talk about wanting freedoms. These people on the right, oh, we need freedom, we need freedom, we need freedom. So far, we've taken away freedom of speech for companies to do the business the way they want to say what they want to.
Just the ones that disagree.
We've taken freedom away from women having control over their bodies. We've taken freedom...
Just so they can't kill their babies.
Exactly. And we've taken freedom away from people that they're not able to get medical care that's been researched for, at least a century. Where is this freedom they're talking about? And the part that gets me too is, and they'll say this sometimes, they'll couch it, oh, you need to leave room for our opinions too, or our speech. There comes a point in time where I don't have to allow others to eschew hate. Like, you talk about free speech. Well, why do you get to say being queer or supporting queer people is good, and I don't get to say it's not good? Because one promotes life and one promotes death. That's the line. And so anytime people are saying, oh, you're trying to take away our free speech, that's not free speech. It's free hate. That is intentionally seeking the destruction of people.
Which I feel like that's such a gray area, because you've got people on one side who genuinely don't know any better, don't know any different. They know the information that they've been told, and they genuinely believe that that's it. So they're not intentionally malicious. They're not trying to be intentionally hateful. And then you've got maybe people somewhere in the middle who are, and this is where I would like to think, like, the people who are saying, hey, queer people have higher rates of depression. So in order for you to get this treatment, reduce your depression. Okay. And they don't necessarily understand the nuances. They see a very surface level, like, hey, this is what we're doing. We're doing this. Okay. Still hurtful. Maybe not like the best intentions, but also not great. And then you've got the people who are like very explicitly like, oh, they'll kill themselves. I feel like,
how long are we going to let ignorance slide? I can't. Well, there's some people who don't know any better, and it's if you don't know any better, you are choosing not to know any better.
We can't make that. We've had this conversation before, that it is very hard to like make other people know better. You have to be able to be at a place
exactly
where you are open to having dialogue, where you're open to differences, where you're open to not being right or wrong, and like that takes a lot. And if you're never exposed to anybody who challenges you, which is not necessarily anyone's fault, like it takes a very high level of awareness to be able to say, I don't know enough about the diversity in the world. I'm going to take it upon myself to learn. Like, that's a lot to do, and if it's not coming like in a documentary, or if it doesn't cross your path in a way where you're like, hey, that sparks my interest, people aren't getting it, and a lot of the communities that are not so friendly are very tight communities. This is the community you live in. You don't venture out of this community. The social structure supports that. But the individuals, I think, there's a lot of people who don't, I think, have the ability. And I think when we had those people come over and they're saying, a lot of these parents who you would never have thought would be supportive, they actually are, because now it directly affects them.
Yeah.
So many of these people who are talking or who have anti-opinions are people who may never get that type of context or communication or
exposure.
connection. Yeah. And so it's hard to be mad at them for being ignorant because they don't necessarily even know they're ignorant.
Well, and I can go with you on that one, because I think about when I went to go work in Long Beach at the LGBT center there, and how fundamentally different that was from where I was living before, the kind of things I knew. I definitely didn't know what I didn't know until I was there, and I would say something and people would be like, whoa. And I'll be like, oh shit, tell me why that's offensive. I want to know. And they would. But that also took the willingness to say, shoot, tell me why something I'm doing is hurting you.
Yes. But this is what I think is so
to change that
hard is I don't know what Desantis knows and what he doesn't know.
He seems kind of dumb, doesn't he?
Tetherball.
Okay.
So, I mean, the problem is that he is in a position of power.
Yeah.
And he clearly has decided to pick a fight with, the biggest kid in the schoolyard.
Yeah.
But it's like...
typical coward bully.
It's so hard, I think, to know who to be mad at. Because, okay, so DeSantis is the person in power. But what if it was like Joe Schmo over there, who also knows the same amount?
Oh, you know Joe Schmo?
Yeah, we're friends.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask him about that.
So I don't know. I mean, it's hard when you're looking at, who's ignorant, who's not, who's malicious, I feel like a good chunk of this is people who are hateful, but do not necessarily know enough to be malicious. And maybe that's me giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Maybe. I mean, I think back to there's people in my family who have had an opportunity to learn and to be welcoming and affirming and have chosen hate instead.
But again, having the opportunity is still, it takes a person. Like, you have to really be able to say, like, yeah, I'm open to being wrong. DeSantis is not open to being wrong. That's why this has escalated as far as it has. I don't even think it's necessarily because he thinks he's right. I think it's because
he can't be wrong.
Yes. Yeah. So much so to the degree now where he's going to explode over the whole state of Florida.
Yeah.
As a result.
Yeah. He'll take it to war before he admits, you know what? My bad.
Right. And it's not even like the window of opportunity to have dialogue was gone a long time ago.
Yeah.
And the opportunity for DeSantis and Disney, even in this situation, to talk things out, I don't even think was ever there.
Yeah.
Because it's like a bunch of power plays.
Yeah.
Which dog is going to pee on the grass and whose grass is it going to be, right?
Yeah. So with that being said, don't be the kind of person or try to be the kind of person who could admit they don't know something. Who can
start a podcast and never have had listened to a podcast and then listened to the podcast and then admitted that on the podcast.
Yeah. Be that person. I love being corrected. I'm not going to lie. I know there are still things about me that come across horribly. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I can be a real asshole sometimes. And I recognize that. And that's the thing I'm working on. And that's why I welcome people who are like, hey, you did this thing that hurt my feelings. I'm so sorry. I certainly didn't mean to, but I recognize that I did. And that's also being able to believe people when they tell you you've hurt them. It's another skill I think a lot of people are lacking.
Yeah, but you don't get taught how to do that necessarily.
You have to choose to learn that. You have to go through that midlife crisis and be like, oh, shit, you know what? Everything I've known so far, maybe not as right as I thought it was. Mm-hmm. Either way, there's a good dialogue. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please tell your friends.
Except if you're my dad, don't tell your friends.
And if you're Brit's dad, definitely tell the friends. And make sure to like us, give us the high ratings, and
give us the rating you think we deserve. We know we're not 5-star material yet.
Speak for yourself.
Hey, I'm a 10, but on this podcast, we're not there yet. We got room to grow, and that's okay.
Bye, everybody.